So, landlord stigma, renting stigma, and how it affects people, including myself personally, and how I think it contributes to homelessness and it keeps homelessness from being able to evolve, like I said before. Um, I found myself, you know, in a situation that I couldn't get myself out of. And I had full confidence in myself when I became homeless that I would get myself out of those circumstances. I didn't have anybody to help me. I moved from one side of the country to the other side of the country as a young person, eager to travel, go out on my own and do my thing, you know what I mean? Um, and I came to BC. And basically, when I came out here and I had to start from scratch, I went through a series of events that were, pretty devastating and caused me, to be outside of my element. First of all, I'm on the other side of the country. I'm by myself. I have nobody. And it's been like that most of my life anyways, but so I figured it would be okay. I know that I'm always going to overcome my circumstances, and I didn't want to let money limit me from being able to travel and stuff. So I just went backpack tenting type thing when I got to BC because it was so beautiful. So, but, you know, things started to change, right? So when I first came to the island, right? Just before I came to BC, Vancouver Island, I had a 2-bedroom apartment in Kitchener, Waterloo with the girl that I was with at the time. And prior to that, I was working in Kitchener at the working center, downtown Kitchener, in the kitchen that makes all the food, vegetarian food, for the cafe across the street. And I had a 6-month contract there, full-time employment. Um, and if people, some of you guys know my story, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up in Hamilton, Ontario. I've been on my own pretty much since I was 14, off and on in the streets. My dad died when I was 18. Uh, you know, I, uh, I've been just a drifter, basically, on my own. I couldn't rely on my parents and my family. We grew up poor. My dad was a drug addict, alcoholic, did a lot of jail time, did 10 years in Collins Bay Penitentiary. My mom struggled with alcoholism and uh, she takes prescription pills for depression and anxiety and stuff like that, which are also highly addictive. Is another reason why I don't go near pharmaceuticals. Is because I've seen that, turn people into victims by design. Some medication is highly addictive, and people think that, oh, if you don't abuse it, you won't become addictive. That's the farthest thing from the truth. They must not have any real life experience, because regardless if you abuse the drug or not, it's chemically designed to be highly addictive. You will become addicted to it over a period of time. It will overcome you, because that's what chemicals are designed to do if they are addictive in nature. And it will lead to abuse regardless. Very few people take that route and lean off properly and do not become addicted to the medication and do not go down a road of abuse. But anyways, that's another story. So I had a rough go, but my goal was, I wanted to have a good life. I wanted to live a good life, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes. So I was in Kitchener. I was working. I got a place. I had to start from the homeless shelter though. That's the thing. I had nobody. You know what I'm saying? When I was in Kitchener, same thing. Same thing when I came to BC. I've had to restart a million times, because when you only have yourself, that's how it goes. I don't do drugs. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with me. People are always looking for the issue in the individual. When they're struggling in their life, it comes. The stigmas kind of make it seem like, oh, well, you must have did something wrong. It's your fault. You're lazy, whatever, right? That's no way to look at anything, because a lot of people have a lot of trauma and damage and have been, disadvantaged from an early age. Like, if you were 14 years old and you grew up in Hamilton, Toronto, and you had no parents and you had nowhere to put your head at night and sleep, you're in a dangerous situation, especially at 14. You don't know how to get a job. You don't know what a SIN number is. You can't even get a SIN number until you're 16 years old to legally get a job in the first place. You need somewhere to rest your head. You need guidance. You need parents. You need family. Some people didn't have that. They had nothing but the streets and the influences in the streets. And when you're a teenager or a child, you're easily influenced. And if you're homeless at 14 years old with no guidance and no family, no parents, you're going to adapt to your environment and become your environment to overcome your environment. It's called survival. It's a natural instinct. Um, and at that age, you don't know the right decisions to make without that guidance in your life. It's just like a plant. It has to be put in good, healthy soil and in the right environment for it to grow properly. So people don't realize how privileged they are that they didn't end up in a situation like that at 14 years old like I did. And I was around, my dad, when he got out of jail. He was doing drugs and having me sell drugs for him. And so that's the type of life that I lived. Okay, so when my dad died and everything, all I want to do is live a good life. But now let's get to the stigma. Let's get to the renting stigma, the employment stigma. I did have a job. They did know my circumstances. I came to the unemployment center every single day to try to get a job. I told them the truth, my story, the life I lived, the criminal life I lived from 14 to 18 years old. I was in jail when my father died. I missed the funeral. I was inherited into that lifestyle. My father was that type of an individual. He was a jailbird, so to speak, and he introduced me to that life, and the city introduced me to that life where I grew up, Hamilton. It's just a crime-rattled city. It's a bad place. It's 30 minutes from Toronto, the biggest city in the country. And I've been all over Canada, and I haven't seen a more scarier scene than Toronto or Hamilton. And I've seen, I've been everywhere. But the thing is, I started to face stigma against landlords, starting from scratch like that. When you're homeless, I had to start lying. And my whole intent at 18 years old when I went through all that was to turn my life around and be honest, and everything that I do is built on a foundation of honesty because I lived the opposite type of a lifestyle, and I overcame it, and I didn't want nothing to do with it anymore. It's nothing but death and grief and pain, and I don't want nothing to do with it. So I rented, I got a job, I got a place. The contract ended. I had a credit card. I'm paying for groceries, rent, things like that, trying to, save my ass because no one else is going to. Before, in the meanwhile, I'm applying for jobs, trying to get a job. And the idea, even with this contract, was that they may have potential employment after that for me. And it was kind of, projected in that way. But you can't rely on anything other than yourself, and that's what I learned. So it didn't go that way. There was not employment secured for me after that. So I didn't fully prepare as much as I probably would have if that wasn't portrayed to me in the first place. So I learned a valuable lesson in that. So anyways, I got caught off guard, and it led to me being in debt and then not getting a job in time before I ran out of money and couldn't pay my rent. Where do I go? Back to a homeless shelter. Now I'm like terrified because I was for sure confident that I would make it in this world somehow and earn a living for myself after everything I've been through. And I realized that world is I don't want nothing to do with it. I did it to the max, and there's nothing. I'm lucky I'm alive, but point blank period. Basically, what happened was I go back to homelessness, and now I think this is a part of life when you don't have anybody. And I ended up getting another job after that, and starting over again from the shelter. And I was in the shelter, had a job, full-time job, and I went to go see apartments. I saved up first and last because in Ontario you need first month's rent and last month's rent and a damage deposit, which I did that, had it, and I even put it down on a place. I went to go see a place. I said I was interested. I put the money down. 2 weeks later, they called me and said, sorry, we gave the unit to somebody else. So why would they hold my first and last month's rent for 2 weeks just to tell me they didn't decide to rent to me and they rent it to somebody else. There's a lot of competition. People that have better jobs, higher incomes, older people that are older than me. There's so much competition being a young person. Nobody wants me if they can take somebody else that has more for them, because renting has been corrupted in a sense. It's all about money. And when it becomes more about money than humanity and community, then we all lose. And then society as a whole starts to deteriorate, and the quality of life in your community, in your city, starts to deteriorate. And there's more crime, and there's more homelessness, there's more users and addiction. It continues to manifest that because people cannot take the steps necessary to progress out of their state, out of their current state. Me being a sober person, being homeless, thinking about the people that have addictions and knowing that they stand absolutely no chance of prevailing. And that's terrifying to me, you know? And I'm like, wow, I'm lucky, I'm blessed, man. Like, I grew up in the street and I seen drugs kill everyone around me, destroy lives, my cousin, my dad. I seen my dad, do needles, everything. Like, he was, it was bad. And that's what kept me away, is my experience in that, seeing a lot of death and destruction where I come from. So the problem is that the problem I ran into, I got another job. I'm even putting down payment money down, and people are still not renting to me because there's always a better prospect or a candidate that would be more beneficial to the renter, to the landlord. Sorry, not the renter, to the landlord. So again, money over humanity it's greed. They're trying to get as much money as they can, and I get it because it's just how our world is manifesting at the same time. But greed is the main cause of unbalancement and distortion, you know what I mean? Because there is no balance. And again, 1% own 99% of the wealth. There's a displacement, things are not balanced correctly. And that's why there's poverty. And greed, and we've been all turned against each other with stigmas to hate on each other and basically not want to help each other, not knowing that a lot of this stuff, homelessness, stems from trauma and kids being kicked out when they're 14 in a major city with a population of 1.5 million people, in a city that's dangerous and violent, and you're getting preyed on by demons, and you're out there at 14 years old being victimized by your circumstances, and you have no control over it. People are privileged, and they sit there and they yell and they say, you're lazy, you don't want to get a job, you don't want to do this. They don't even realize that they have been disadvantaged from 14 up and already ripped off for their childhood and already given a criminal record because they had no choice but to commit crime by their own parents, by their own environment to survive. See, the average person wouldn't even imagine something like that because they're so privileged and they've lived in a condition that was sheltered from that. They don't even know the reality of that. And that's why their ignorance causes them to stigmatize people and use stigma against people and misjudge people. I get it. For the landlord has to protect their investment. They entered this business for profit, for money. Again, there's the problem too. It's all about money and all about profit and leveraging yourself off someone else, benefiting from somebody else's labor or whatever, so on and so forth. So this is the issue, right? And this is what's causing a lot of, problems, because if me, a sober homeless person, can't even get somebody to rent to me, you know what I mean? Even with a job, putting a down payment down on a place, and still somebody selects someone that it makes more money than me or is older than me, and they know they can, you know what I mean? They're, younger people are higher risk. That's the judgment, and it might even be so, but like, I'm 29 years old now, and I'm still struggling when it comes to this. With a criminal history, criminal record from almost 15 years ago, that's like almost non-existent. I don't even remember it or why I was like, you know what I mean? I've overcome that. But that still holds me to a certain standard. And I can't get past that because of the stigmas against me. So what I'm experiencing, what I really want to say in this video is my experience coming to Vancouver Island. I was going to North Island College in Courtenay, going to take social services. I had to do upgrading in grade 11 English when I first came out here, okay? I was in a homeless shelter because where I lived, everyone partied, punched each other out, and they were just drinking all the time. So I knew I had to get myself out of there, and I don't have nowhere else to go. So I had to start from scratch once again, like I have multiple times in my life. So I go to the shelter, I go apply for jobs, I get enrolled into college, I'm doing upgrading, I'm seeing a tutor twice a week because, I dropped out grade 10, you know what I mean? I couldn't even have no money to eat a lunch when I was at school. I had holes in my clothes. Nobody really, they drank away the baby bonus basically. So I was suffering as a child, and I have a birthmark on my face. I used to get beat up and bullied and picked on in school, but that's another story. But anyway, so I'm I'm doing all this. I get a part-time job, and I'm enrolled in college, seeing a tutor twice a week, and I got a part-time job as a dishwasher in Courtney, and I'm out of a shelter. I'm homeless, and I'm enrolled in college, and I have a part-time job. Guess what happens? This is what has continuously happened throughout my life, relentlessly, with no break in between, just bang 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 all the way through. Since I was 14 years old, I've been getting smashed by tragedies, and nobody can see it, and they don't understand it. So what happened was the shelter decided that they had to shut down for 4 months for renovations. It's the only shelter in Courtney. There's no other shelter. How is that even possible? So they're like, well, don't worry about it. We'll pay for your bus ticket to Campbell River and have you sent to a shelter out there. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm enrolled in college. I'm trying to change my life. Like, I enrolled in college. I got a part-time job. I've only been working for like 3 days. I'm just about to get to a check, and you guys are shutting down out of nowhere with no warning about renovations and paying for people's tickets to Campbell River. That is unheard of. This is the type of events that happen to me consistently over and over and over again, and it's mind-boggling and unbelievable to the average person. So could you imagine? Now I lose. I was this close, one book away from finishing the upgrading in grade 11 English. I could have been taking social services and had funding to take care of me while I went to school. So anyways, as soon as that happened, I also, okay, yeah, how did that go? So I was also in Parksville. I lived in Parksville. I moved in with somebody I didn't really know very well. He just hit me up on Facebook, said that he heard my music before. I make music. I'm a recording artist. I also make YouTube videos, obviously. So, anyways, he hit me up. He's like, yo, man, I like your music. He's like, I live in Parksville. I'm like, oh, I live in Courtney now. He's like, yo, if you ever come out here, I got a room for rent, blah, blah. I was like, perfect, because that's kind of what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to move on from there and try to head towards Victoria where there's more opportunity. So I went to Parksville. I ended up getting a part-time job, or sorry, not a part-time job. It was actually 12-hour shifts that I had 3 days a week to start at the Black Goose Inn Resort in Parksville as a dishwasher. This was many years ago. The same individual that I'm living with now decides to try to take advantage of me and also steal my belongings. So he became aggressive with me. We got into a disagreement or an argument because he told me, he's like, hey, yo, come out here, we'll make music. He's like, don't worry about first month's rent. Just pay for your own groceries or whatever and your own stuff for the first month. And then once you get going, then, you'll pay rent. I said, cool, that's awesome. I got there, I still gave him $80 for whatever, $80 for some groceries. I bought a couple $100 worth of my own groceries, and everything was good. We were getting along. And then when I got the job, all of a sudden he turned on me and he was like, yeah, now I want first month's rent and last month's rent and a damage deposit, and hurry up. So he turned into a weirdo on me all of a sudden and just completely rewrote the agreement after he said something otherwise. So that just sets me up for failure. I was unprepared for that, and also I haven't even received the check yet. I just started work, so it's just crazy. So we got into an argument, and then all of a sudden, he was sipping, he was drinking, and he turned up on me, tried to fight me. We got into it. I slipped on gravel. I fell. I put my arm out. Bam! My arm broke. It broke the rotary cuff that holds my arm into place. So now my arm, if I go like this when I'm sleeping, my arm falls out of its socket and it pops out and it's dead. It's dead weight. And I have to grab my arm and go like this. And you can hear it. And it goes back in. It pops back in. The cartilage is broken around it, so it just slips in and out. There's nothing holding it like that. The rotary cuff is broken like that, so it just slips in and out instead of holds my arm into place. That's a permanent disability. There is no fixing that. There's a surgery that you can get, but that's even scary because I've had people that got that surgery and they still messed it up. You fall on that, break that again, and rip with metal in your arm, you're probably gonna, who knows what might happen. Like, I have no idea, but I don't want to, I'm terrified of that, so I just left that. I didn't get the surgery. It's been doing better, and but I try to do hard labor like I did before, roofing, you know what I mean, construction, labor, all that stuff, like, and it just pops out, like, when I pick up a heavy bucket of nails, whatever, bang. So I realized, that was one of the most devastating things that ever happened to me in my life, and it affected me all the way up until now. It still affects me. Um, that's a hard reality to accept at 29 years old. Um, People don't understand this though, and landlords probably may not care. Maybe they might care, they might not. So I mean, I end up on disability PWD from that experience, right? So here I am, having to start over again. I left Parksville. I go to Nanaimo. Had to start from the shelter. There was not much opportunity there, so I went to Victoria, and I've been back and forth from Hamilton, Ontario to Victoria multiple times in the last 5 years. Um, Visiting, my mom is still in Hamilton, Ontario. So I wanted a better quality life, so I moved to a nicer place, and I'm just trying to make it out here. And all the odds are against me, and it's not being very nice, that's for sure. So I end up on disability. So now think about this. Now look, I'm a sharp looking, young man. I don't do drugs, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not an alcoholic, you know what I'm saying? So I'm lucky in that aspect. You know, I did everything my teenage years. I experienced a lot of bad stuff. It keeps me away from that life. There's nothing good about it. Anyways, point blank period, here I find myself in a situation where, you know, I just worked. Now, recently, fast forward, I just worked for an organization called the Existence Project for a year, and I started volunteering at the beginning, and then I got employed as a program developer and advocate, a homelessness with lived experience, and a public speaker. So now I'm an advocate for homelessness because I experienced an injustice while I was while I was homeless, and it caused me to be unable to prevail and progress out of my current state. All of a sudden, nobody wants to rent to me. No one wants to try to employ me. They think I'm a drug addict because I'm on disability. So here I go with a whole nother world of hurt coming for me, right? Anyway, so even after I do a year, I was housed for a year. I was renting a room. I had a lot of roommates. Terrible situation. Having 7 roommates is not doable. People are going through all types of things. If you want to prevail in life and progress, you need your own space. It's just not going to work. It doesn't work long term. I've done it, tried it. It doesn't work. But a bachelor in Victoria, BC is like over, $1,200 to like $1,500 for a bachelor. Like, it's absurd. The pricing out here is just, the audacity. I don't understand. I know it's a beautiful place. We're on an island. I get it. It's probably the most desired place in Canada to live. So because of the location, yeah. But everyone's buying out every single building and every single housing, and they're just trying to make profit. That's all it is. And they're buying everything up, so there is no low income housing, And if you want low income housing, you have to live amongst, people that are doing drugs and living a life of crime, whatever. When you're trying to evolve and leave that life behind you and move forward so you have a future, and you can't because you're put right in the middle of it, especially when you're homeless. They just stick you in a pot with people that are mentally ill, recovering, withdrawing, doing drugs, alcohol, and mental illness. Like, it's a freak show and you're in the middle of it trying to work on a daily basis and you burn out and they kick you out from the shelter, so you got to walk around all day. It's you miss your meals to go to work. If you're working to get a paycheck, now you're missing your showers and your meals because you only got specific times to do that when you're living at a shelter. And if you're working, you're not unable to do that. So it's one or the other. It just keeps you stuck. Okay, out here keeps you stuck in homelessness. And the landlords need to see this. They need to know this. The government needs to know this. This is bad. You know what I mean? It's the system is designed to keep you down the way it is, and people are just hating on everyone. Yeah, right. You're just lazy, blah blah blah, and it's just causing a mess for everyone, and you're all gonna have to deal with it. So people need to be re-educated on what's really going on out here. That's what I'm doing. That's the work I was doing, advocating for a year. Now I have lots of references. I got lots of amazing people in my corner. I got housing references, employment references. I've just done multiple certifications that I have now. Like, I could go on, and still I'm facing stigma from landlords right now. And they're like, ooh, oh, you're on disability. Like, you know, they don't want nothing to do with me. So I'm being honest right now. You know what I mean? Like, that's my circumstances right now. Everything just shut down. Where the free food, where I could eat on a daily basis, the only place that I could eat on a daily basis other than our place, which is just completely drugged out. I don't do drugs. You expect me to live amongst drugs and you think I'm going to prosper? Not going to happen. These people are not well. I've tried to go to these places. People have tried to fight me, and I have to end up in a physical altercation with somebody just to try to get a meal or shower. And that could lead me to jail. I can't put myself in a situation like that. I can't put myself in an environment around drugs and people that are, that want to fight, whatever, because I will just end up in jail. You know what I mean? Or who knows? So just because I'm homeless doesn't mean I should lower my quality of life. It's not doable. I can't prosper. I can't work and focus and stay well mentally, physically, spiritually like that, trying to work my way up. It's not going to work. And then the landlord system just closes you right out. You have no chance. You could have 20 references, but if you're on disability and you're only getting $12.50 a month, every place is above that. Oh, well, just get a room. I just told you I live with roommates, and it's a disaster. It can lead you to a worse situation, and that's what it did. It led me to a worse situation. I ended up homeless again because I couldn't stand the environment that I'm living in anymore. And I didn't have enough time. You think like, oh, it's okay, I'll just get into another place. Something always ends up happening to throw you off, and something bad happens before you get to the point that you think, oh, it's all good, I'll just, it's unpredictable, and you just need to not put yourself in those situations. So I've learned that rooming and roommates and all that stuff is putting yourself in a potentially bad situation 9 times out of 10. So I just said, I need my own space, but I can't afford it. And you can't get a job without housing because you need to be well, you need to shower, you need to eat, you need to rest in order to function and go and see places and do what you need to do. You can't do that out of a tent. You can't work out of a tent. You can't work out of the shelter because the shelter is full of people that are, not well. And I am trying to maintain my wellness, and you can't do that in an environment like that. Go ahead and try it. You know what I mean? Do you hang out around users and stuff like that? Do you live in an environment like that? Have you ever? Probably not. Would you do that? No, because everyone's at a different place in their life. They may be going through addiction and they have trauma that has led them to their addiction. You know what I mean? But they need time to develop themselves. They need time to overcome that and battle that first before they enter housing and stuff like that, right? But it's unfortunate because living in the streets keeps you at a low frequency, and it deteriorates your well-being, mental health, your physical health, and it just deteriorates you completely until you have no gas juice left to even do what you need to do to take care of yourself and leverage yourself out of those circumstances. This needs to be accepted and known. This is the truth. This is my experience. This is my honest truth. And I'm even telling you about sensitive situations about my life, you know what I mean? But it has to be done. This needs to be said, and it can't happen anymore. You know what I mean? If I can't even get a place, and I can't even get my foot in the door out here, and you know what I mean? Like, and that's what happened to me. I didn't want any of that to happen to me. You know what I mean? People don't understand. This has been going on since I was 18 years old, and it's just getting worse and harder and harder. And I've been through so many bad things, like my dad dying, and then came to the island, and I was living with some people. My cousin-in-law, his newborn, 2 months old, died from crib death. I had to leave because he was grieving for his child. You know what I mean? And I'm feeling, and then the mother of that child passed away months later, and the devastation level, and this is just after my dad died, and then my first love died. Like, I have dealt with a lot of death in my life, a lot of loss, best friends losing, battles to mental illness and drugs and things like that, and in jail, and I've just been destroyed, from 14 all the way up, without even a fair chance at life. And I was corrupted and altered in a way that I couldn't function like everybody else before I even became an adult. And then people put this expectation on me, and society put an expectation on me and expected me to perform as expected. After all of that, you're an adult now, you can make your own decisions, and man up and blah blah blah. They don't realize that I thought the same thing, and I was still broken down from trauma after that affected me when I was working, when I was trying to function and pay my bills. After I just suffered the losses that I did, it did something to me that I didn't know that happened to me, like post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression. I was diagnosed for all of these things, and that's also on my file, on my disability file. But most people that have been through what I've been through either killed themselves, they're lifers in jail, or they've lost the battle to mental illness or addiction. And you know what? I watched it all happen to me all my life, to everyone around me, and that's why I prayed to God and I fought through everything so I could have a good life. You know what I mean? Because I suffered. But then I realized the system is against me, society is against me. It's almost impossible to get a landlord to rent to me, to give me an opportunity to leverage myself. I have employment opportunities right now. I have people willing to literally pay my first month's rent and my damage deposit, do anything for me because they see the potential in me. They seen the work I was doing for a year. It opened up an opportunity for me, for a career opportunity around lived experience, and that gives me purpose in my life because I've been through a hardship in life and injustice, going through homelessness, and I realize there's holes in the system, and corruption within in the system, and stigma that is blocking people from being able to get to the next level, from homelessness, and that's a problem. The system and society, and anything should never burden anyone's ability to progress out of their state. And also they need to know that the in-depth details that are involved in somebody's trauma and what they're going through and why it's difficult with their history, even at a disadvantage as a child. I didn't ask for that life. I didn't ask to go and kick doors in and sell drugs. That was delivered to me. I was a child and I was told, you're going to do this. 14 years old. You know what I mean? I grew up around criminals, drug dealers, gangsters. My father was a gangster. I didn't ask for that life, but when I got older and I got away from it and everyone died from that life and I lived, I felt like I was preserved, and I said, I'm going to go and live a good life. I'm going to earn, and then I slowly found out how almost impossible it is, coming from my history and my situation, having an extensive criminal record as a youth and having charges as an adult. 18 years old, I'm 29 now. That's so far behind, but it's still used against me. So this is the problem, not only in Victoria, BC, but all over Canada. But that's where I'm advocating for. I'm going through the experience, and even with I have a huge list of references now, which is amazing. Thanks to the work that I was doing, thanks to the Existence Project, that organization I was working for. It did exactly what it says, the Existence Project. It showed somebody that was experiencing homelessness and put them in a room with government officials and people that are empowered to create change in this community, in this city, in this province, in this country, and got to hear my story. And that opened up a lot of hearts, and it changed a lot of people's minds, and it fought a lot of stigma. I did that for a year, and people seen me through that process, and then seen that I, ended up back in these circumstances of homelessness, and now they're in my corner, advocating for me, representing me. Um, like, I can't even tell you how much support that I've received. It's unreal, and still I'm struggling to secure a place right now, and I can still